What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by guitarist Rick Ventura from Riot. And man, we are honored beyond belief to have him on the show. Rick and I don't know each other. Jason met him briefly one time, but I just reached out to him on Facebook and asked him if he'd be on the show, and he graciously said yes. And I was shocked, and I remember texting Jason going, dude, Rick Ventura is going to do our show. And he couldn't have been nicer. We got into the weeds with him today. We like to say that we nerd out on this show, and I feel like we really nerded out with Rick today. And he couldn't have been more accommodating. Just a super, super cool guy. And
he was mellow, and I like that because he's thinking the whole time because he's not, tripping over himself like we are.
Yeah. And one of the things I like is that, Rick and Rick doesn't do a million interviews. You haven't heard from him too much. It's not one of those people where you go, oh, I don't need to watch this interview because I've know all there is to know about this person. Rick and Riot kind of flew under the radar, and we love them for that. But I think that's why he comes, it was a very fresh conversation. We really enjoyed it. I like to think that he enjoyed it too, because I just feel like there was good energy among the three of us today.
Yeah, and to clarify, when I met Rick, it was just because he was walking around the merch table at a gig when Riot Act about a year ago was supporting Raven on tour.
Right.
Yeah. And they were awesome, and I just had to run up and go, wow, that was great hearing those old tunes again. Your singer is awesome, blah, 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 blah. And it was a quick meeting, and that was it. It wasn't a hang or anything like that, because Raven was about to play, and I had to find my place in the front row.
Right. Exactly.
So sorry, Rick, but I was reporting for Raven duty.
Yes,
and was pleasantly surprised by Riot Act. It was such a joy, and they were slamming. They were fucking killing it. And we talk about on this episode with Rick the difference between Riot Act and then what everyone who knows Riot, especially the Fire Down Under years, the Restless Breed years, where they're the classic 5-piece 2-guitar band. And Riot Act is not that. It's a 1-guitar band. So the elements are slightly different, but you would be surprised at how full and heavy it actually is, because of the players that he's got. Monster rhythm section, kick-ass singer. And they have a record out that's been out for a little bit, Closer to the Flame, by Riot Act. It's on every streaming platform out there, and you can buy the record anywhere, Amazon and all that silly shit.
Rick was not an original member of Riot. He was not on the Rock City album, but he joined in time for Narita and stayed until the end of Born in America. And in that time period, of course, we got Fire Down Under, Restless Breed, just two amazing records. And, a lot of people hold up that Narita record as classic as well, and Born in America too. And we had a really good conversation about the differences in dynamics between Guy Speranza on vocals and Rhett Forrester on vocals. And I've mentioned, and I've said this before, I find myself reaching for that Restless Breed record as often as I reach for Fire Down Under, and sometimes maybe even more. I love that album.
Yeah, it's great. So
it was great to hear him sort of give us background on the two different singers and where the band was during those two different eras.
For the most part, I'll chime in. For the most part, for me and my friends who played in bands, we covered songs from both of those records.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? Records. Like all over Texas, I had friends who were in hard rock bands and metal bands that covered songs from Fire as well as Restless. And back to your point about the singer change, it was very interesting to hear Rick sort of emotionally react and actually curl his brow and think about the differences between those singers and what they the cool shit that they could write for what Guy Speranza was doing changed. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that wouldn't have worked with Guy. This is new and fresh for me, having this new sort of element involved. We could do this now that we have Rhett that is just different with Guy. So I want you to hear his words, but yeah.
Yeah. A real honor to have him on the show today. We're both big fans, and I don't think anybody listening to this show would argue that Fire Down Under is one of the great classic hard rock metal albums of all time. So just thrilled to have him on the show today. Rick Ventura from Riot and Riot Act on the Talk Louder podcast.
Yeah, sometimes coffee has an adverse effect on people. So yeah, I hear
it doesn't
that.
bother. I could drink it, fall asleep, and whatever. It doesn't. I think I'm wired like 24 hours a day.
Okay.
Rick, how are you, man?
Hey, look at you, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for joining us, man. This is a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, Dave, can you turn your mic down a little bit?
Yeah, hold on.
Just
He's loud.
Just a little bit. He is real loud. He was like this last time too.
It's like he's going through like a 100-watt Marshall half stack.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's
Wall
that?
of sound.
Better?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better. That's
Yeah,
better.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right, Rick, thank you again so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Jason and I are big Riot fans, and I love that you and I don't really know each other. I just randomly reached out to you on Facebook, and you were kind enough to say yes. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. That was kind of a surprise. So cool.
Oh, man, I'm surprised you don't get asked all the time to do stuff like this.
Well, in the last few years, it's been happening more often, it seems. But it's always, a thrill knowing some, people that want to hear about me or the band and what's happening, so that's always a thrill.
Absolutely.
Just to jump in here, I saw Riot Act supporting Raven here in Austin, Texas, at the Lost Well, little dive bar on the east side of Austin, Texas.
Right.
And you guys fucking destroyed. It was so good.
Thank you, man.
Just to hear those old songs as well as new stuff was just exciting. It's kind of like I'm a little bit of a purist, but rest in peace, the guys that are no longer with us anyway, and ultimately decided to. I mean, I saw the Rhett Forrester years. We can start talking about 1981 anytime you're ready. But the point, because I saw all that shit. But the point that I'm making is I saw the new version of what you have going on, and it was fucking awesome. So congrats on that. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. It was just like, we just had the right combination of people there, and I just wanted to keep it high energy, not really, we lost Lou at the beginning of this project.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we're not going to try to recreate this thing. That's why I just want to just keep it one guitar and just keep it raw, and just play some new music and play some of the old stuff, for fans.
Yeah, we're talking about Riot Act, correct?
Right now we're talking about Riot Act. Yeah.
So give us a status update. I was going to talk about that a little later on, but we're already.
We could do that.
Yeah. What is the status of Riot Act? And where can people get the album that you already put out?
Well, at all the major outlets like Amazon and Apple, and people that actually want a physical CD, you can get it on Amazon. Otherwise, Apple Music and every other streaming service.
And what's the status of the band? Are you guys writing, recording, have plans for a second album, or?
Yeah, I actually do. I've been writing, so I have quite a bit of material ready. So there will be something happening very soon. We just took a few month break, a few months people doing various projects right now. So, but me, I'm busy. I'm still writing and doing stuff. So over the next few months, there'll be a lot of interesting things happening, even outside of Riot Act. So
yeah,
keep tuned.
I thought it was cool. I was doing some research on Riot Act, and your singer, Don, is it Chaffin? How do you say his last name?
It's all those.
All of them.
However you want to say it.
Let's just go with Don. We'll call him Don.
Yeah, right.
I didn't realize he sang with Dan Spitz in Red Lamb.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan from Anthrax fame.
Yep. Yes.
I guess that makes sense. All of you guys are up in New York.
Yeah. He's had quite a few projects prior to this this Riot Act. That was one of them.
Did he work with Billy Sheehan in some capacity?
Yeah, they had a short-lived project. I think they just did a few gigs. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I heard as well.
They did a few shows, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of monster bass players, the guy you currently have in Riot Act, or at least the guy that did the debut album,
Paul.
That guy's a beast.
Oh yeah, he's insane. He's really crazy.
I got to see him live, and I was like, "What the hell is going on right now?"
I kind of say that after every show.
Yeah, right.
Like, people say, "What is he doing?" I said, "I honestly don't know."
Right. Well, the thing is, that just for
good.
just for cause and effect, there's always the danger of someone who has the ability to play a bass like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of in danger of overplaying, if you will.
Right, sure.
Because I feel like, I don't know, let's stretch the box a little bit and say, some people think Geddy Lee might overplay, and I disagree because there's only one guitar.
Right. It's a three-piece situation. So if you look at a lot of the great three-piece bands for our history, the bass players have always been killer,
Oh yeah.
Because you have to hold it down, and you also have to fill it out and make it interesting. It depends, on the bands. You look at, going way back, if you look at the Who and look at John Entwistle,
correct.
He would just stand there and just his fingers. He was just filling out the whole thing.
And somehow still not overplaying, Rick.
Right. And Rush's music, it's very riffy. But then you have Van Halen, which, Eddie was really the focal point. But then Michael Anthony, he was very straight ahead, simple, solid, and held it down, which was critical for Van Halen's sound.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think because if he was a riffer, and just constantly overplaying, it wouldn't have been Van Halen. It would have just been a mess.
And he's also
forces.
Right.
Yeah. He's also locking in with the drums too.
Right. That's critical. I always like bass players that lock in with the drums too.
Yeah.
So it depends on the music you're playing, really.
Well, do you think while we're sitting on this mountain here, obviously you're open to whatever. And I'm sorry, what's your bass player's name? I apologize.
Paul Ranieri.
So Paul,
yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. So obviously you're cool with what's going on because it sounds fucking awesome, and he's locking in with you guys, and you would think that when you think about I'm just vomiting this. When you think about Riot,
right,
you don't think about these busy, as like uppity of a bass player Paul actually kind of is. He's probably holding back enough, but still keeping it interesting. I like the Entwistle concept.
Right.
That he's still pumping and locked in, but he's keeping it interesting for sure. He's keeping the listener on their toes.
There's no doubt. It changed when we started as a two guitar band. When Lou was in the band. It definitely changed because I remember saying to Paul, I said, it's going to be very different now, and the stuff I was writing, there's going to be more room for you to really spread out really, and it's a totally different band now because you said 3-piece band, so it gives them more creativity and freedom, but it's still like you saw it, it's still solid.
Yeah.
We have a solid drummer like Claudio. He's not like Neil Peart. So if everybody's really out there, and I'm not like Eddie Van Halen or anything like that. So it kind of works.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing.
Right, too much of everything.
You don't want you guys trampling on each other and overplaying and losing track. You got to play for the song, as the adage goes.
I
serve the song.
Always agreed with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was check out Riot Act.
Yeah, one more. I saw him live, and it was fucking awesome. And I hope people will go and check out the record and catch up to Riot Act.
Cool.
I was going to say one last thing about just where we were. Just one little thing. Mm-hmm. Going in, realizing that you were the only guitar player in this group here. As an old Riot fan,
right,
that my skepticism was underlined, and I was like, how is this gonna, you know what I mean? I was scared as a fan because I wanted to dive right in and go, oh my God, fucking, real rock and roll again. And,
right.
and it was that, but I was just knowing that it was just you. I was like, oh, well, I wonder, you know what I mean? It was just like, I stumbled for a second. Just
something that thought it was in my head too.
Wow.
It really, believe me, I came from a 2-guitar, right? So I knew.
Yeah.
Sure. I knew, but it was, like I said, there was no point in trying to recreate what was, so it's like the combination of people it had a sound. It was different. Wasn't Riot, but it was different and had the energy and that's I said, hey, hopefully the fans will like it. We like the way we sounded. The thought was there of getting another guitar player. It pops up every once in a while, because you have the harmonies and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right. But it kind of worked because we did that Raven tour. And everybody just loved it. So the reaction was phenomenal.
Yeah. And you can't argue with that. That's important. Just
right.
You gotta remember.
I mean, if it was like, oh, these guys are lame, hang it up, then we wouldn't be talking here right now. Probably.
Yeah. Lukewarm reaction is always gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. So just for clarity, the album is called Closer to the Flame. Is that
right? Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Riot Act, Closer to the Flame. Go check that out. It is good stuff. I haven't seen you live, but I listened to the record, and you certainly haven't tarnished your legacy. Let's put it that way. It's good
thank
stuff.
you very much.
And you're surrounded by great players for sure.
Yes, definitely. Right.
So I have a question that I've been dying to ask somebody from Riot, and you're the first guy we've ever had on the show to talk to. Okay, it's March of 1983. I'm 16 years old, and I'm finally allowed to go to my first concert.
Mm.
And it's Kiss on Creatures of the Night tour. I'm living in San Antonio, and the opening act was advertised as being Riot. And so I was super excited because not only am I finally going to my first concert and going to see one of my all-time favorite bands, Kiss, but growing up in San Antonio and hearing Riot on the radio, I'm super excited about the opening band, Riot. And then just before show date, Riot is off the bill, replaced by the Plasmatics.
Wow.
Now, at the time, the punks and the metalheads didn't really get along, and I was so disappointed because I had no interest in seeing this punk rock band.
Right.
I wanted to see Riot. I ended up loving the punk rock band, and the Plasmatics were amazing, and I wear it like a badge of honor that the first live band I ever saw was the Plasmatics.
Wow.
But do you remember that? And can you tell me why Riot was on the bill and then off the bill suddenly?
I wish I could tell you. I honestly don't know what happened at that period. I mean, I was close to the end of my era with Riot,
Okay.
And San Antonio, that was Riot's ground in the early days. I mean, we first got airplay, and that was the first place we headed to, you know?
Yeah.
So it was always a thrill to play in San Antonio. In fact, last time we went, unfortunately, we didn't get to play. We played Dallas and Houston, but we didn't get to San Antonio. So hopefully we'll get there, because that's always been one of the best cities to play.
Oh yeah,
well, I remember
there were people from San Antonio at that Austin show. I know
yeah,
that
people. I found that out. There were people that there were fans that came from Mexico.
Oh yeah,
played El Paso. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
yeah. You still have a stronghold in Texas, and especially San Antonio. And I just had to ask that question because I was so disappointed that I didn't get to see you guys. And so I did my research on that tour, and the Plasmatics, that date was only their third date on the tour. So they were only recently added when you guys were taken off. So I didn't know what the last minute thing was.
Yeah, I wish I could remember that, I mean, the band could have been at a lineup change at that point, you know.
Oh.
If you don't remember, it's cool. I just thought I'd ask because it was monumental for me because it was my first concert, and I actually had a chance to talk to. I met Richie Stotts, the guitar player for the Plasmatics. Mm-hmm. I told him that story, and he got a big kick out of the fact that I thought I was so pissed off that I had to sit through the Plasmatics when I was expecting Riot, and of course I ended up liking the Plasmatics a lot and punk rock overall. But
very cool. Yeah, we came up during the whole punk rock era.
Yeah, and San Antonio. So I used to hear you on the radio. Joe Anthony used to play you. Lou Roney. The live photos on the back of the Narita album were shot in San Antonio.
Right.
You're from New York, so tell me, especially in the age before the internet, how do you get word that you're getting airplay and building an audience halfway across the country?
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of bizarre. You think there's always I always had friends that like a small group that would know what the newest band was, right? What was the hottest new underground band? Because that was the coolest thing, Hey, check this band I found, and it's like, then word would just spread, So that, I guess through our management, we found that we were getting airplay down there, and then we said, decided, hey, we got to visit this place, we got to play this place, I mean, I think it's always been like that. We've got stories, from bands in the '60s and stuff like that. Throughout the rock era, you would find little pockets where people just, they hear a band, and now with the internet, you could be on some remote island in the Pacific or something, and have a fan base there, But it was just interesting in San Antonio. I guess it's always been a rock and roll town. I mean, there were certain cities like Cleveland, and it just got back to us in New York. Either they contacted our management or whatever. We just various magazines also back then that monitor airplay.
Yeah, I seem to recall some bands, whether it was Riot or not, that I heard stories about. Like the radio station would get a promo, right? And it would have contact information on it, of course. And if it the guy who had the midnight show, which is kind of what Joe Anthony did, he would be, I think his show was called In Concert, Joe Anthony in Concert. Yeah. And he would try new bands. He played Rush, he played UFO. A little bit later on, he played you guys, Merciful Fate. He helped break bands in the South.
Oh, sure.
Him and Lou Roney, like Dave mentioned, and then Corpus Christi, anything south of San Antonio, the same kind of thing was happening. Somehow the DJ got a promo, called the number. Hey man, this is lighting up the phones. That's 70s and early 80s talk, pre-internet talk that I go there, but that I think moves the needle, and I feel like that I mean, you're proof of it that, you followed the divining rod. Oh, no, it looks like we're going south, guys,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Texas. I mean, you mentioned Corpus Christi. We played there. I mean, everywhere we went in Texas, it was total insanity. It was just,
yeah.
Did you ever
hardcore fans?
Yeah.
Did you ever get to meet Joe Anthony or Lou Roney?
I think we might have met him once.
I know that you guys thanked him on the back of the Narita album and the
Right.
Fire Down Under album. The credits are too small on the Restless Breed CD that I own, and my eyes can't read that.
Yeah, right.
They're probably on there as well.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I saw you guys on that tour. I saw you with Saxon at the Austin Opera House. And me and Dave are huge Saxon fans as well. That show was amazing. I want to say that was, were you on that tour? Or were you gone by then?
Did tour with Saxon quite a few times.
Yeah. I swear you and Kip, and it was everybody. But it might have been with Rhett. I don't recall if it was like the Turning Point, Restless Breed, or I can't remember if you guys were still on the end of Fire Down Under or what.
Yeah, it could have been on the end.
I saw you guys in an arena tour. I saw you guys on an arena tour during Fire Down Under, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who you were touring with. Can you give us a grocery list of headliners you might have been supporting on Fire Down Under?
Oh God,
in Texas. Oh, sorry, this is a pop quiz for you, Rick.
Yeah, no. I mean, we toured with AC/DC. I remember too.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen that shit.
That's right. And in fact, we had the original bass player from Riot, Phil Fight. He came in to fill in, and I remember that tour with AC/DC, and then played with Hagar. And I mean, the arena stuff was with Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult, and later on Rush. I mean, it was.
What about Whitesnake? Did you tour with Whitesnake?
Not with Whitesnake. No.
Sammy Hagar.
Quiet Riot?
No. That would have been interesting, right?
Yeah,
Riot. So that's funny. That's funny that you bring that up, because on my list of questions, I feel like I read somewhere that, you guys had a lot of let's just call it bad luck. And there was a time around Fire Down Under going into Restless Breed when, of course, you guys had all the pieces in place like you always did, but there looked like there was going to be, maybe you were finally going to break out, and then Quiet Riot explodes. And was there ever any conflict with you guys, like trying to clarify, no, we're not that band, we're the other band?
Yeah, because every time you would mention Riot, Quiet Riot? You mean Quiet Riot? I mean, that was constant.
No.
It was just like, I mean, you mentioned bad luck, and we had some good luck too. Everybody views us as the band with the worst luck ever, but there's bands have had worse. But that was not a good one there. Right at the time we were about to break, and you have Quiet Riot, and they have a hit on the radio. It's interesting. In the mid '60s, the U.S. had the Byrds, right? BYRDS, and in England, Ron Wood's band were the Byrds, and it's interesting. And it was the same type of thing that happened to them, and they. The Byrds took off in America, and it's like, they were kind of screwed, and that was the end of them.
Yeah.
But we moved on and tried to just forge forward.
Sure. Let's go back a little bit. I'm sorry, Dave, to interrupt. I'm just kind of, before I forget, I have this memory of reading about you guys in Kerrang! Magazine quite early, an English, rock magazine.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. And there were pictures of you guys. It may have been a gig at Donington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
First
you
one.
guys, you're on the record. Like, they released the record, and you guys are doing road racing live on the record. And I just seem to, I mean, the articles I read in Kerrang around 81 and 82 were just like, fucking loved Riot. They loved you guys so much. And I think that that's a seed planted for, you know, the other guys, you know, the Riot 5 that's out there. I think that of course it planted the seed for that, but but just, you know, without any saying anything or, you know, feelings, fuck our feelings. Let's not go political here. Let's think about 1981 or what have you in the UK. And your little band from New York gets invited to go play over there somehow, some way. Do you recall how that even happened? And you got to record. They recorded you, and it's on the fucking vinyl, and I have it, and I love it. I love that song.
Yeah, that was a sort of a fantasy thing. We couldn't believe that happened. You know, that we got on that bill, and you know, when you look back at it now, you know, I mean, the Donington Festival became a huge event, you know.
Yeah.
And back then, you know, it was just like, when we went there, we viewed it like a mini Woodstock. We're playing to a mini Woodstock because it was just a sea of people, and you know, playing with Priest and Scorpions. And
was UFO there? Is UFO there?
No, not UFO.
Okay. Michael Schenker?
Rainbow, April Wine.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
Rainbow,
you know,
April
just
Wine and Saxon.
Just Rainbow. Just, you know, whatever, whoever that
Rainbow
is.
Headline.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Blackmore was one of my idols. You know, Mark and I love Blackmore, and but that was a thrill, and the fans loved the band, and that's why we were always included in the new wave of, you know, British heavy metal.
Now
got in there, and and we started to go to England, and the shows were just phenomenal there. The fans, even when I went back with Riot Act last year, we did a small tour there, and they all came out, and it was a blast. I mean, loyal, really diehard loyal fans, and it was just very humbling to see that and play for them. And they brought their Fire Down Under and all the early Riot albums. It was a trip.
So when you did that Monsters of Rock festival, were you on tour over there anyway, or did you fly out specially for that gig?
I don't think we were on tour. I could be wrong. My memory's not very good, to tell you the truth, on this. So I'll be honest with you. I don't remember if we flew out there for that. I'm sure the other guys in the band will say.
It was one of your earliest gigs.
Sure.
And that's phenomenal that's one of your earliest, because as we said, the lineup was Rainbow, Scorpions, Priest, Saxon. Yeah, Jason's holding up the vinyl right there.
Yeah. Touch.
That's a hell of a bill.
Touch, Riot, Saxon, April Wine, Scorpions, and Rainbow.
Yeah, I was reading some of the reviews of that just recently, actually. It was just interesting. They were reflecting on the first Donington show and talking about the bands there. And luckily, they said some nice things about us.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, you're one of those, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You guys made your mark, but you weren't around long enough to kind of overstay your welcome. Not saying that you would have, but there is a certain romance with bands that kind of make a mark and they're kind of this perennial underdog. You're always going to be viewed as sort of the little engine that could, you know, and people love that, and people always respect that and always admire that. And I think that's why you go around the world even to this day, and people remember Riot fondly.
Oh, no doubt. Especially they all just go back to Fire Down Under, and it's just like, yeah, one of my best favorite albums of all time, the top 10 album. I mean, it's unbelievable what I would hear from fans.
Yeah,
that album, it just blew my mind, you know. And then I come across these heavy metal lists that people would compile, and Fire Down Under would be up there, and no, top 5, top 10, whatever. And yeah, that always blew my mind. And it wasn't until I think decades later that I realized the impact that album had on a lot of people and a lot of bands too. And we were always one of those bands that were just really under the radar, kind of underground. And it's kind of cool. Fans always like to have those bands that are just like, oh, we just know about them. They're our band. They didn't make it big and sell out or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was. Yeah, that's the point I was making. And so on Fire Down Under, on the credits, I think the first sentence in the liner notes is something to the effect of, this album is the result of 3 long years of struggle. And then you go on to thank all the people that helped make that album possible.
Sure.
What can you tell us about the 3 years of struggle? What was going on during that time?
Well, let's see. I mean, from the early days before I was in the band, just to clarify, you joined in time for Narita. You're not on Rock. Right. Okay. Exactly. So it probably was a struggle for Mark to get the band that he wanted, because he's the one that started the band, so getting the right combination of people. Right. That's just a history of like people coming in and out, musicians coming in and out of the band. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. To this day. But in those early days, there were a lot of different lineup changes and musical direction, getting right people that were into that higher energy, hard rock sound, and the struggle of just getting things recorded, and the struggle of dealing with during the mid-'70s when Rock City came out. New York was punk and disco.
Yeah,
it was the beginning. It was heavily disco. So and then the punk movement came in. So, and we were just like kind of left field. It's like we're playing like this American British heavy rock. It wasn't really metal, but there are songs on there that border on the early days of metal.
Like for sure,
Rock City,
proto metal.
Sure. So that was a struggle, playing the music that we wanted to play in an environment that was just total opposite. So and then trying to get noticed and shopping recordings that we had.
Yeah.
So that's the 3-year struggle, and going from Capitol to Elektra, and it was just a nightmare. Dealing with record companies and people getting turned off by the band, turned off by our managers. It's very complex and very frustrating. But that's the struggle. Just trying to get the band off the ground in an era where that music really wasn't the focal point. I always felt that if we came out a few years later, that we would have really made it really big. I think I always thought we'd like just like a year or two early.
Yeah,
it's interesting because I've heard it the opposite, the polar opposite. Like bands will get a deal and then the label sits on the record for a year or two before it finally comes out. And then that
happens.
The moment of impact was back there, and you guys were just, for you guys, it could go either way. You were either too soon.
They were right in that middle spot.
Either too soon or too late. So
that's what I kind of felt, It's like, I mean, just a few years later, the focus was more on that music,
Yeah.
I mean, what did Van Halen hit in like 79?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We predated some of the really bands that really made it big, and we were right on the cusp of that. But there's a whole political thing behind that too. Why we never made it to that level too. There's a lot of reasons.
I've often wondered also if you had been from England and you could have accurately been called part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement, if that would have given you a little more legs too, because you would have slotted right in nicely with a lot of those bands, but maybe to record labels and people that market stuff and, you know, the machine, you're kind of this outlier because you're in New York, you know, and the Saxons and the Def Leppards and the Iron Maidens are happening in Europe. So I've always wondered if that was maybe part of it too. They just didn't quite have their eye on you yet.
And to piggyback, I always threw Riot into the same stack of records. I always threw, oh yeah, and this I know they're from New York and they're not from the UK or whatever. You know, I would always put you guys right next to UFO or Thin Lizzy or Diamond Head or even Motorhead's early stuff, because it's bluesy kind of shimmy stuff, you know, and just loud and abrasive. And then I always did that.
Yeah, but here's what's interesting, right? So you would think the cool thing about this, here's this American band, right, that's doing this music that goes to England. I mean, just the way Jimi Hendrix went to England in '67, you know, and became like this phenomenon, you know, and it's just like, wow, you know, why didn't that happen to us? Because it's always, but the thing is, we weren't big in England. You know, that's what's interesting about it.
Right.
Like, I don't know, were the marketing people at the record companies just oblivious to that? You know, it's kind of interesting. Obviously, if we came from England, you know, during that period with those bands, we probably would have been right up there.
Yeah.
You know, with Def Leppard or Saxon or Maiden, you know?
Yeah, and those bands, other than the three you mentioned, there was a lot of people forget that maybe they don't forget, but the new wave of British heavy metal was a tag such as "Don't throw rocks at me." These are just words. I didn't make them up. Grunge. Okay. You know, somebody called this kind of music grunge, and they called this kind of music the new wave of British heavy metal, and they called this kind of music disco, and okay. New wave of British heavy metal came out at the same time as like disco and punk were kind of like battling for fandom, right? Van Halen from the West Coast was on tour with Black Sabbath.
Right.
So you're like, this crazy shit going on right now. So everybody's fighting to, you know, everyone's doing this, you know.
Yeah.
Dog pile of just art and sound and fashion. And it was just a crazy time. But you know, Saxon, you mentioned Saxon and Def Leppard and Iron Maiden, and you know, those bands were getting going in '79.
Right.
But they weren't the giant opus or the legends that they are now.
Right.
So, and you guys were pretty much neck and neck, if you will.
Yeah, pretty close,
Yeah, but they were all from over there, and you're from New York going, wow, what's our next move?
Right.
I mean, if you would have moved over there because it was trendy to move, hey, dude, let's load the van and move to L.A. That's what, you know, all my friends did that shit.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fuck that. No, you stayed in New York. I stayed in Texas, whatever it is. It was still, it's a gamble either way. You're not, you know, you didn't have to leave town to go do what you ultimately did. I mean, you guys might be as big as Angel Witch or a new everybody. See what I'm saying?
Right. Sure.
There's 1,000 new wave of British heavy metal bands that are legendary, such as Riot, that are not a Def Leppard or even a Saxon.
Oh yeah, there's so many.
Yeah. And even Diamond Head is one of them. They're just lucky that Metallica covered 4 of their songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a thought. What if Metallica had covered some Riot tunes?
I've seen Lars wear a Riot shirt.
That's why
He's a fan. He loves you guys.
He's a big fan of Riot.
Fuck
In fact, I think there was a talk of one time of them doing Swords of Tequila, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah,
that would have fucking rocked. They would have killed that tune.
Because from what I understand, Lars and I think even James, but I know I've seen Lars plenty of times with Riot shirts, and I found out years later that we've influenced quite a number of bands
course.
that are superstars now.
Of course, dude.
Yeah,
I've covered your songs 100 times.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I read a story where you actually had, I won't say it was a formal meeting, but at least a casual conversation with Metallica's manager when they were an upcoming band that nobody had heard of. And there was he was kind of letting you know that you guys had the goods. And can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in another interview. It was in New York. I was at the Ritz, and I ran into Cliff Bernstein, and he was a fan of Riot, and we were talking about just what was going on, the politics of the band and management, and he came out and he just said straight away, "You've got to break away from your management. You guys could be so big, and you got to break away." And then he goes like this. He goes, "See these guys? These guys are going to be the next big thing." And then sitting on this sofa is Metallica, and I look over them, and they're like teenagers.
Yeah,
they're going to be the next big thing, and it's like Metallica.
Yeah, but it's Metallica. It's Metallica like '84.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget Cliff Bernstein telling me that.
Wow.
Yeah.
He said, and I remember going back to the band. Hey, we have to do something here. But it never panned out, unfortunately. And that's why I think that we're not up there with Metallica.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It's part of the business, right?
I mean, there's a lot of talent there at the band during that period when Guy was in the band, and we had all the elements, the sound. The Guy was such a unique vocalist, behind the sound of Riot, So, and that's what people latched onto. Very few bands can get away with switching, getting a new singer, and like AC/DC is one of the few bands that could pull that off, right?
Yeah.
Where people love Bon Scott, but they still love Brian Johnson too,
Yeah.
Van Halen did it. I mean, it's two different sounds and two different eras, and there's people say, David Lee, that's Van Halen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, love the Sammy era too. Sure. So
they sold a lot of fucking records with Sammy in the band. They sold a lot of fucking records with Sammy in the band.
A lot of hits.
Yeah.
A lot of hits, man.
Yes.
So Jason knows this, and maybe some of our listeners and people that know me will know this, but I find myself in the minority probably, but I find myself reaching for Restless Breed at least as often as I reach for Fire Down Under.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think that is a great record. Especially, I don't know that I knew this at the time because I wasn't paying attention to the chronology of the catalog, but especially when you consider that is your first record with a new singer. It's a great record, and I love it top to bottom. And so tell me a little bit about that era. And I also wanted to ask specifically, before I forget, the song Loved by You is your baby. That you wrote that song is credited entirely to you, if I'm not mistaken. And that might be my favorite song on that record.
Oh, cool. Yeah, most of the songs that I did with Riot were my songs, actually, even on Fire Down Under and Restless Breed, that I would present to the band. Loved by You was a lot of fun to play with Rhett. Working with Rhett was, I enjoyed it. I think probably because we're more from the same school, and he was more of a bluesier type of singer, which appealed to me. And Mark liked that too. Guy was very, very different. Just came from a different area, really. But for some reason, the songs that I wrote on Restless Breed worked well with Rhett. He interpreted them quite well.
I think Love by You reminds me of Humble Pie. I Don't Need No Doctor.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's got that vibe to it. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we were. I loved Humble Pie.
Oh,
and Mark. In fact, we all loved Humble Pie.
Sure.
And I was lucky enough to see them back then.
Awesome.
Really, in the early days. Yeah. There's the whole harp thing, guitar trade-off thing going down.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And I really like Restless Bleed, and it kind of gets overlooked, but I think there's some really good tunes on there.
Absolutely.
Down here, there was a bunch of local bands covering songs off of that just as often as Fire Down Under.
Oh, that's cool to hear.
Yeah.
I always love hearing when bands do our tunes. I think that's the ultimate compliment, right?
Especially in San Antonio, because they knew that it was going to light up the backyard keg party if they played one or two songs off of both of those records because they heard them on the radio last night.
Wow.
So that was a real deal.
And we were a Riot tribute band out there somewhere, right?
I'm sure. In San Antonio, no doubt.
Probably, yeah. So what was Rhett? Because I've read that Rhett, while he's a great singer, was a great singer, unfortunately in past tense here, but I've read also that he was a bit of a liability in terms of behind the scenes, he was a bit of a loose cannon as a personality. Was he a bit of hard to handle?
No, I think that's just how everyone perceived him. He was a really nice, sweet guy. He really was a great guy. But you look at Rhett, the persona of Rhett. I mean, when we first saw a video of him when we were auditioning singers, he has his leather chaps on, the long Robert Plant hair, right? I mean, he was just like, you couldn't ask for anything more of a rock god singer,
Right.
Yeah.
So when you have a person, that kind of image, you sort of like have this, you have an idea of like, okay, this is what this guy is. And he had this Southern drawl. He was,
where was Rhett from? Where was he originally from?
From Georgia.
Okay. Wow. I don't know if I knew that.
But he was a really good, nice guy. He had a bit of a temper. I remember one time he had a disagreement with our manager, and I'll never forget. He goes, "Mr. Manager, I'm going to have to punch you out."
Wow.
But he wasn't a troublemaker. He was a really good guy.
Yeah. I
liked working with Rhett.
I think his voice is great, especially Restless Breed. I like Jason's comparison to Humble Pie. I think Restless Breed is one of the, a lot of people will say Fire Down Under doesn't necessarily get the credit it deserves, but it certainly gets more credit than Restless Breed. And I think Restless Breed is a great record. So,
for the band, the direction it changed a little bit because the writing style has to accommodate your singer, and you have no way. That's just the way it is. And luckily, we came out with a good record, and the songs just came out, and there's plenty of fans that love that era of Riot.
Yeah.
It was kind of a nastier version of the band with Rhett on vocals because
good point.
His rasp, he could clean it up enough to be kind of soothing and croon, because he could croon as well as get that, the lion roar, which I do compare sometimes, and not limited to like what Blackie Lawless did in Wasp when he would totally dig in that. It's the same lion roar, and I fucking love that. But I love stuff like Guy, and I like I like being able to sing that clean and high, and be able and have a lot of melodic control, just as much as I love that lion roar.
Yeah, that's what Guy had. His melodies were great melodies.
Unbelievable. And he could soar. His voice would soar. And I feel like Rhett had a bellowing thing as well as that, nails on the chalkboard sometimes when he wanted it.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. Exactly. Maybe that's why Restless Breed appeals to me. I love Guy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But Jason nailed it. There was sort of a nastiness and a snarl.
I'm just saying both versions of the band were fucking untouchable.
Yeah. It goes back to what Rick was saying earlier. There's very few bands where they can replace the singer and have an equal amount of fans with each singer. And I think it's because each singer turns the band into, you can't just say, oh, it's the previous band with a new singer. That band almost becomes a new sound. It has a new identity.
A little bit.
It becomes a new band, yeah.
It's just like Black Sabbath when they went from Ozzy to Dio, or as we mentioned earlier, Bon to Brian, or David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar. Nobody will say that's just Black Sabbath with a new singer.
Happened like
Black Sabbath with Ronnie
times
James Dio was basically a different sounding band.
That's right. It happened like 3 times with Rainbow.
Yeah, exactly.
And they had hits. They had hits with all 3 singers too.
Yeah.
So you can't even shake a stick at it.
Yeah.
You got Dio. You got Dio. You got Graham Bonnet,
Joe Turner.
Joe Lynn Turner, and they were on the radio and they had hits and it was numbers. The bean counter's like, wait, this is Rainbow, another new singer. It's probably funny management wise.
Yeah, that's quite amazing that they were able to sustain, switching through 3 different singers. That's a rough one.
And again, in this sort of roundtable we have going here, and I think that all 3 of us have sort of like, hit the button correct, is like your comparison from Bon to Brian. It's hard to do. I'm saying that Riot did it.
Oh,
you guys did it. You fucking did it.
No choice to do it, And
well, neither did AC/DC or Rainbow.
And look at that, and freaking Back in Black with one of the biggest selling albums. I mean, couldn't ask. I mean, how crazy is that, right?
Yeah.
They lose Bon, and then they have the biggest freaking record ever,
Yeah, and you also think about it, it's like that whole 1979 coin again. Mm-hmm. There it is. It's like a bad penny, right? The 1979 thing. New wave of British heavy metal, Riot's from New York, Van Halen's on the East Coast. Everybody's trying to, do this, and singers are changing, and here comes Back in Black, 1980.
Yeah, there's
unbelievable.
There's no reason Riot should have made it big, even whether it was with Guy or Rhett, because both bands had what it,
I agree.
Had it.
I agree.
Had it, And when Rhett came in, it was just new blood. We wanted to continue, and it was just new blood. You bring in a new member in the band, and it's just like, hey, it's excitement. It just revives everything, and you get excited about writing. It's like, oh wow, this guy could do this, and maybe Guy couldn't do that, but this guy could do this, and it's just refreshing. And the songs just it just happens,
Sure.
And we had all the elements with both bands, I think.
Absolutely.
I agree.
It's just it's just a lot of mismanagement, a lot of bad decisions.
There's a lot of luck and timing involved in rock and roll. All 3 of us know that, and a lot of our So why did Guy leave? And what did you guys see it coming, or was that a shock?
Did we see it coming? I don't think anybody thought about that.
Wow.
It happened, during the Rush tour, where it was like he mentioned the fact that he wasn't going to continue, and it was. I remember we were pleading with him backstage at a concert at the opening for Rush,
Wow.
In the dressing room, like, Guy, really? You're going to leave? You can't, you put all this, energy. We all put this energy into this all this time. And now, it's kind of like the payoff time. We're touring with Rush, playing stadiums. And I think each of us had a talk with him. Each band member would get him alone and either try to persuade him. But I think his mind was made up. And I don't know if it was years of frustration, not making any money, or just like, or maybe there was a thought in my mind that maybe he didn't want to take it to the next level where, all right, now you might be as big as Rush and you might be a superstar. And, I kind of wondered, I wonder if maybe you couldn't handle that. I mean, I don't know, there's all these things. And maybe he just wanted a stable life.
Yeah.
It's
Did he
so
finish
many
the
factors.
tour? Did he finish the tour?
Did he finish the tour? Yeah, I think we just finished the Rush tour and that was it. And he said goodbye.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we actually have a photo of him opening a door with a jacket over his shoulders, looking back, and it's just like, wow, it's like the last photo of Guy leaving.
Elvis leaving the room.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
What album was Rush promoting? What a timestamp on it.
Was that 81?
Oh, that was the Limelight.
Wow.
Tom Sawyer, that period.
Yeah, that's 80. That's Moving Pictures.
Yeah, Limelight. I remember they were doing a sound check, and Neil Peart was late, and they actually asked Sandy to come up and play Limelight with them for sound check.
Oh man,
that's cool.
I bet that's
he used to check us out when we were doing our sound check. I mean, they were really, really great guys, really nice guys, and we'd see him out there checking us out during sound check.
Wow.
It's like, wow, look at this Getty checking us out, And I was a big Rush fan too, I saw this came over here.
Yeah. I've read stories where you say that was the best tour you guys have ever done. And as we've mentioned, you've done some massive ones with some big names. Sure. Besides being a Rush fan, what else was so special about that tour? Did you build some camaraderie with the guys in the band? Because I know a lot of times when you're touring, the bands are really just ships in the night. One goes on stage and leaves the building and goes to the next city. And then people have this idea that you guys are all backstage partying all the time. And that's couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah, right. Because I really didn't really hang out with them. And we were at the parties and everything like that. But I think we were kind of shy, I remember just being, didn't want to come off like a fan or whatever, but I was kind of shy. I was like, there's plenty of idols. Like I remember seeing Tony Iommi when we toured with Sabbath. He was having breakfast with his wife, and I just like smiled at him. Like I didn't want to bother him. I was like that with a lot of people. I really didn't hang out with the guys in Rush, but I know they acknowledged, Getty acknowledged us. Touring with Sabbath, hanging out with Geezer by chance. We met in an elevator, and me, Kip and I, we went up to Geezer's room and we're hanging out with Bill Ward and Geezer, and they were giving us a lesson on how to be screwed by your manager, how to get beyond that, and not to make the mistakes that they made.
Wow.
Which was very cool. They were very cool people. Geezer was great. And that was like a real lesson.
Yeah, and they would know.
Touring with Rainbow and Blackmore, I was afraid to talk to Blackmore because he always had this image, this persona about him. And I just remember just like, oh, it's Richie. I can't even talk to him. I'm afraid to talk to him.
Were you the same way around Angus Young? Did you ever get to talk to Angus?
No, Angus. They were cool. They were cool. They didn't have that thing that Blackmore had. That aura about him,
Yeah.
That was different. They were, down to earth working class guys, and it was a little different. But I was always like, Mark and I used to watch Richie play at the side of the stage because there were nights that he was just brilliant, and but we were always afraid because he was like just strange. There was times that Joe wanted to do an encore. People wanted an encore, and he would be banging on Richie's door. Come on, Richie, come on out. Let's do it. It's like, so it's like you see stuff like that and go, wow, this is.
Maybe that's why Guy left.
I know, man.
You saw that stuff and was like, oh my God, these expectations when you get to that level, they're just crushing.
Yeah, it's a shame with Guy because unbelievably talented dude. Like I said, the melodies and the songs and the lyrics.
Oh yeah,
great lyrics.
Yeah, he wrote all that stuff, huh? He wrote all those lyrics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew he wrote the bulk, but I always thought Mark had some lyrics in there somewhere.
Mark, every once in a while, we throw a lyric in. We get together in a room, and somebody throws in a line or two. That happens. Whether you get credit or not is a different story.
Back to just kind of fanboy out on Guy for a second. His lyrics were, if you just read them as a shopping list, very proto power metal, or something. Altar of the King, Outlaw.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love how like on the song Outlaw, you guys had this kind of like swagger, and you had quite a few songs that had this, kind of, this sort of dancey,
Guitars almost
groovy
go back and forth on that.
It's kind of, and then you guys also had, fucking bulldozer effect as well.
Yeah, sure. That song and some stuff from Restless Breed, probably inspired by going to San Antonio. That Mark was always fascinated with the West.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, speaking of Restless Breed, that song "Violent Crimes." I mean, that's almost Metallica. I mean, that's thrash metal, right?
Yeah, there's some crazy shit you guys.
You're right about that.
Yeah,
you guys were doing a lot of stuff that was, I'll say, it's just proto metal. You guys were ahead.
You're right.
You were doing something that, well, you think of new wave or British heavy metal when people think of Diamond Head, they think of Am I Evil? Thank you, Metallica. And you think you go hear the Diamond Head version, it's a different band. It's the guitar tones are cleaner. It's a little looser in the, the groove is it's different than Metallica.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. It's choppy when it's Metallica. It's very staccato, and they're kind of like this groovy rock band from England, which you guys had a lot of that, which once again, throwing Riot into the new wave of British heavy metal thing for more of a Def Leppard is not metal. Def Leppard's not Iron Maiden. Def Leppard is not Motorhead. Def Leppard is not Angel Witch.
Right.
But it is. And it's like everybody, Saxon included, is influenced by AC/DC and UFO and
UFO was, I loved UFO. I remember when they first hearing about them, it's like, oh, you got to check out Michael Schenker, we all loved Michael Schenker, and they were such a great band. But I guess the thing about Riot was we were influenced by a lot of the great British bands.
Yeah.
And Guy was influenced by a lot of American blues, but also a lot of boogie bands like Foghat.
Yeah.
Mark was into, Bad Company.
Yeah.
I was into Zeppelin, Deep Purple. So there's a lot of, all my favorite bands were British bands. So and Montrose for an American band. We were heavily influenced by Montrose. Peter, the original drummer, and Mark heavy duty Montrose fans. I love Montrose. And so you had that American side and the British side, and it just came together, and that's what gave us our sound, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I guess you throw us in that pile of British metal records.
I just hear it. I think it's a natural thought for me to just do that because of all of the bands that you just mentioned, from Bad Company to Foghat to Purple. I mean, that's enough. And you mentioned Humble Pie earlier. That's all blues-based, swaggery, nasty, loud, but, you know, dragging sometimes, and also, like, you know, almost fast, you know, but dirty and just nasty bluesy rock.
Yeah, we just turned up the speed a bit.
yeah, which is what ultimately I feel like the new wave of British heavy metal was doing because of some of the same bands mentioned. Hey, and I just want to say, before I forget, and there's no way I'm going to, I've enjoyed this conversation so much.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I just want to say that, you know, any version of Riot in certain markets, there's the reality of it, are always going to have fans that love you because of, you know, what you have created and been a part of, whether you're in or you're out, or you're in or out, this version, that version, it doesn't matter. You and other rioters, I'll say, I think I just made that up, are always going to have, you know, in these pockets worldwide, are always going to have the fan that is going to freak the fuck out. I don't care if it's the year 3000. You guys have created these pockets. You don't have to be the biggest band. You know, oh, we were this close, we were going to make it, and then we were going to be a bigger band because of this moment in our career, and then, oh, shit. All that aside, talk about it 100 times, fast forward to what I just said. Man, those fans that came from Mexico to see you play in South Austin, freaking out.
I know.
Forever freaking out. They can't wait to see you again. That's my point.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, playing those clubs and just seeing those people come out. I mean, I tell you the truth, I think I prefer doing that, to have a club packed with loyal, dedicated fans that are enjoying it, and we're enjoying playing for them. You know, that's like, it's just, I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more being a musician, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't ask for anything more. So, yeah.
And the songs don't sing themselves either, and they don't write themselves either. So hats off to you for both of those.
Thank you, man. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
So we haven't talked about Born in America, and that album, at the end of that album, you, Kip, and Sandy all left the band. And so what was the catalyst for this mass exodus after that album? Why did all three of you leave at the same time?
Well, because, you know, we were off, Elektra dropped us. And things just, management-wise, were just spiraling down.
So it was you guys were basically, the ship was sinking and it was time to...
Yeah, that's really what it was like. The music was changing also. It was almost like trying to jump on the bandwagon of what was happening as opposed to staying true to what we were doing. Riot always had songs that were very structured as far as melodies, hooks, the guitar solo, the harmony thing. And it was just getting away from that, really. Like, that's really what it was down to. I wasn't as thrilled with the music anymore. And the whole collapse of management and record companies, it was just, I just remember talking to the rest of the guys, and this is, you know, it's just, the end.
It's over. Yeah.
It's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was the first, and then Kip, and then Sandy. And Mark just changed direction. And
yeah.
That's just unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys been slugging it out for a long time at that point, and it's just one thing after another. I mean, you're human. At some point, you can't take any more punches, and it's time.
That's what it was like. Exactly. I was like, wow, after all these years, and this is where we are now. And it's like, it was almost like, oh, wow, I'm done with this. I just, I just wanted to forget it, to tell you the truth. I just wanted to forget it. And it would never leave, years later. It's like, hey, Rick, you were in Riot, right? Oh, you guys were the greatest. Like, you hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, even up to, till today, it's like, but it's different today. It's a different.
Tell me about, I know you're not the lyricist, but I think it's probably safe to say Swords and Tequila is maybe your best known song. Do you remember the inspiration for that song or writing that song? Because I think people would be interested in the origins of that song we all know and love.
Well, that's Guy. Guy read a lot, and so you have to ask Guy. Unfortunately, you can't.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, he creates great imagery.
Yeah,
that's what was really. You listen to his lyrics, like Jason mentioned Walter the King, and he was really good at creating imagery, and the lyrics. They just came out of him, whether he read something or experienced something while on tour.
Yeah.
It could have came from anywhere, I mean, the whole tequila thing. I don't know, I guess in Texas, he drank a lot of tequila. He didn't really necessarily play with swords, but
it always reminded me of the conquistadors, and that whole battle.
That's a good one there.
Yeah.
And it's very possible where he got that from too. Sure.
Yeah.
But it also works with Texas because, tequila, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, there's a lot of Texas elements that came out.
Nice.
In the music, a lot of influences, from the Mexican people that we would meet there.
Oh, yeah.
The lifestyle, a lot of that, you hear that in the music. Restless Breed and Fire Down Under.
Yeah, I think you said something earlier about Guy had a very picturesque or cinematic way with words, and like Jason mentioned the song Outlaw earlier. I can't listen to that song without visualizing the main character in the song. It's that vivid, and I think that's what you're trying to say is, he was really good at creating characters and making them so relatable and so real that as a listener, without any visual interpretation or cue, you get the story. You're seeing and you're seeing the story in the characters.
Right.
And Swords and Tequila does that. Outlaw does that.
Well, at the end of Outlaw, Guy is speaking Spanish, I believe.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what he's saying, but I think he's speaking Spanish.
Yeah, there is. I don't think that is actually Guy doing that.
I always thought it was. Don't ruin my fantasy, Rick.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was Guy. Yeah, what am I saying? Of course,
it sounded like Guy speaking Spanish at the end of Outlaw.
Yeah. So listen, Riot, of course, is known for great songs, classic songs, great albums. You're also known for your album covers. What can you tell me about, and why did this theme go on from album to album to album? What is that creature on your album covers? It was a guy named Stephen Weiss, I believe, who painted it. He was the artist.
Well, I guess every band needed a mascot, right? Iron Maiden and Eddie, and I guess maybe to fit in, Riot had this mascot that was created. I mean, I don't think any of us were thrilled about it. It wasn't. Definitely. I mean, I wasn't thrilled about it. There's a story behind it. There was incidents with battered seals, and it was kind of a statement against that, and the seal uprising against this. It's kind of crazy. But the Narita, there was also the airport, and the sacred grounds that they built the airport, and then the seal with the coming back, the Axe and Vengeance, and so I guess it all ties into this, this metal imagery. You look at all the metal bands from that era, right? Everything there's always somebody screaming, right, or wielding some kind of weapon and seeking vengeance.
It's going to the opera. You're going to the opera because there's always this tragedy and there's always this drama going on in lyrics and the songs and the dynamic and everything. It's like going to the opera.
Yeah, it's a fantasy thing, especially you're a teenager and you latch onto this, that's why a lot of bands, they delve into sci-fi.
Oh yeah.
All these different genres, that young adolescent males, they just get drawn to that. I guess this fantasy and of what's out there, and it's very interesting when you analyze it.
It could be from novels or comic books.
The song "Warrior" from Beowulf.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that was read books, pull stuff from there.
Yeah, operas and plays, and anyway, lots of drama. So much drama going on, and I feel like that lends itself to, to just be generic rock lyric, just with, what's going to happen next? I feel like that's kind of important. Wow, what's he going to do with that axe?
Right.
And I think that it's important to have that suspense and, this.
The
and
metal always had that element, right?
Yeah, it's defiant.
It's been an important element. Yeah, sort of like put your fist up in defiance.
I think that a lot of, and it's no different with other styles. I feel like it's interesting that, when music with drums, I'll be as generic as possible, from maybe the 40s, 50s, and even 60s, and keep on going. There was sometimes an artist on the cover, just going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like it had the guy's or girl's name written in cursive, and they were just going,
Yeah. Metal was a backlash.
Barry Manilow, you know what I mean?
Donny Osmond or
whatever it was. And this went on. This is still going. This is forever, right?
Yeah.
So when the music was ferocious, more dramatic, instead of just instead of this dainty, pretty love song, which I love that. I love those old eras. I love the big band stuff because that was some ferocious shit. When those guys were cooking, they were cooking.
The drummers were amazing drummers.
And usually on those records, it would be the whole band going, "Yeah, man, what up?" It was like 10 or 15 guys.
Right.
Or it was the band leader out front with all his guys behind him going, "Yeah," or whatever. So I think that Dave's digging this. I think that as time went on and music got more dramatic, fuck it. The art did. Movies, commercials, even. It's crazy. They curse on commercials now. So, what are you going to do? It's,
having the right imagery to match the music.
It's got to talk. It's got to talk and it's got to walk.
So I wanted to do like a quick round of name recognition because I was looking at the liner notes. What?
I said I like this game.
Yeah, I was looking at the liner notes on Fire Down Under, and a couple names jumped out at me, and I wanted to ask you about them. Number one, I see a special thanks to Diana Ross, and I'm going to assume that is not Diana Ross, the singer. If it is, that's a great story, and I want to hear it.
Yeah, I have no idea, to be honest with you, because I probably never even read anything on there.
Okay, well, that's good.
And I'll say, yeah, Diana and Supremes were a big influence on Riot. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay, moving on. Ed Aborn is listed on the back of that record, and we've had him on this show, and he was also instrumental in getting Jason to fill in some dates where he sang for Accept.
Oh, really?
When Mark Tornillo was sick. So obviously that's more up to date. That's 2022. But this album came out in 81, Fire Down Under. What's your connection to Ed Aborn back in 1980?
There was a lot of people that just supported the band. They were either into the music, into the band. People popped in out of your lives back then. And so all these names at that time were people that either really liked the band, contributed to getting the band to move up the ladder somehow. Yeah. All those names are some of the, and there might be some names that are like I know on some albums, some not very kind remarks to reference to some managers, I think.
Well, there is a name on there that I saw that another Ed Leffler. Now, I know him as the manager from Sammy Hagar and Van Halen. So what is Riot's connection to Ed Leffler in 1981?
That's with the Sammy Hagar tour. And that didn't, a lot of disagreements and a lot of back and forth with him and our managers. That's just bad news.
The credit on the album says special thanks to Ed Leffler for needing what we had, or something like that. So obviously,
he's kind of saying he was using us.
Okay,
using us, like,
wow, sarcastic.
I mean, did Sammy need help? I don't know. He was solo at the time. No Montrose, no Van Halen yet, and we were hot young bands to help him out on tour. Bands use each other.
Sure.
And we were fans of Sammy, so we get to play with Sammy. Cool.
That name jumped out at me because I know it very well as being connected to Sammy and Van Halen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, and then finally, there's another one that's right at the end of the credits that I have to ask about. There is special thanks to somebody named Dr. Sandy P. and his trained chimp.
Pansies, right? Yeah.
What the heck is that?
Boy, that was another nasty thing. Sandy Pearlman, the manager.
That's Sandy Pearlman.
Yeah, that's his reference to. It's like, I don't know. We saw this. Why are we doing this? Why are you? This is the way our managers were. They were like vengeful. They were, like, I couldn't understand why would you want to burn bridges and why you want to say these things on a record. They just had this. They had to get a dig in.
Yeah.
And
so a lot of this,
a lot of this is. It's like, it's not the band saying this, it's the management saying it,
Yeah. And now, just also, Sandy Pearlman managed Blue Oyster Cult, is
right. That? We were on the tour, the Black and Blue tour with Sabbath.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah. That was.
So basically, your manager is using your album cover as a platform to spew all their vitriol.
Oh, yeah. All the bitching that went on, it's like, okay, now fuck you guys. all eternity, it's printed on this.
Forever.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Dave.
All right, well, I'm gonna end my line of questions at least on what I hope is a positive question for Rick. We talked about Lars Ulrich, and obviously a lot of your peers and people that came after you hold you and Riot in the highest regard. I was curious to know, what is the greatest compliment you've ever gotten from one of your peers?
Oh, greatest compliment? Well, I'm reading just certain things about hearing Lars mention about Riot, how it influenced that band, reading things like that, really just, I don't know, kind of sends like a chill through you. It's like, wow, we did enough to inspire you and to go on and become one of the greatest bands in rock. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And hearing things from fans, just going out on the road just in the last few years with Riot Act, and meeting people that are in bands, and they're telling me, oh, we play your songs, we do this. I remember one band that opened for us. I think they might have even done Altar of the King, and the singer was saying, yeah, we do this song of yours, and hearing that, and they're so excited to tell you that, and then you hear that, it's like, oh wow, that's what ultimate compliment. So it's really rewarding and makes it all worthwhile, even all the bad luck we had and all that. But hearing those comments and be remembered for a certain period in music, and exciting. These fans, loyal fans that, like you said, that'll be with you for the next 10, 20 years, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you certainly left your mark, and you've left us with a lot of great music. I mean, Fire Down Under and Restless Breed, not to discount the other Riot albums, but those two in particular get heavy rotation in my collection. I won't speak for Jason, but I will. I think he would say the same. And a lot of our listeners and a lot of people here in Texas, where we currently live, still talk about you. As you know, when you came here and played with Riot Act, people will approach you forever for your autograph on Fire Down Under. So
it's so cool to hear. I can't wait to go back there.
Yeah. I'm from Corpus Christi originally.
Oh yeah.
And there was a band. It would have had to have been late 70s. And there was some kids a few years older than me, and I think I went to like a warehouse party to see them play, and the name of their band was Tokyo Rose.
Oh wow.
and I remember just hearing them play 2112 by Rush. I didn't remember them playing any. They didn't have a singer. It was interesting just hearing Rush without vocals. And
that's
what's the name of this band? Someone said, oh yeah, they're called. I think the kick drum said they bed sheet. Maybe had a bed sheet said Tokyo Rose on it. And I just thought that was really cool because it was early, so they knew about you early. It was late 70s, right before I moved to Austin, and so that always shit like that is I'm 60 years old. I'm never gonna forget that. Why am I gonna remember this? Not so great. Maybe they were okay. I was too young to pay attention because I don't know. I was a punk, and this band's called Tokyo Rose, and I'm going, oh, like a Riot song.
That's funny. Wow.
Yeah. It's really cool. I think
it is.
It's really cool that you're, your legacy begins somewhere that you don't know anything about because you're in New York, and where the fuck is why what it's like a hand of God. It's like you're touching somebody that you don't know, right? It's the connection that you made with your music just by, oh yeah, this song's cool, whatever, what's for dinner? It's like it's a day, it's an everyday thing for you because you're a songwriter, you're in a rock band, and there's someone who's completely using something you created right here. Your intellectual property is their everything. They're like, oh yeah. So it's kind of
fascinating.
It is. And this kind of thing is happening right now, universal. And that's what's, I think, that we are just kind of talking about now is how many people are touched by someone else's art. They hang it on the wall. They name their kids after you. You know what I mean? It's, you know.
Oh, sure.
It's kind of amazing, and you and your rioteers have done this, man. So it's awesome.
Yeah, when you're growing up, I remember, you always like, oh, what is there in life? You always want to leave some kind of mark that you were here. And that was always, I always thought about that, it's like, whether you may reach the level of Metallica or whatever, in whatever field you're in, just to have that. And, and then like Jason said, years later, you start hearing these stories and you're meeting people, how the music touched them. And I on the last tour we did, I remember meeting this one young guy. He knew all about Fire Down Under, and I said, "And how old are you?" And he was like, I think he was just in his late 20s or something. It was like, wow, you weren't even born, and he like knew everything and loved it. It was just like, that just blew me away. He was hearing stories like that. So, so it's definitely.
Well, it's good parenting, or it's the coolest big brother. You wait for him to go to work or go to school so you can steal his record and play it all day and put it back before he gets home, and it happens to be Fire Down Under.
Yeah, that happens.
Oh my God. Yeah. I learned about a lot of cool shit. I have 3 brothers, man. I borrowed their records all the time.
Oh yeah. You always hear stories about, I mean, there's a whole, I mean, a lot of friends of mine had older brothers that grew up in the 60s, and so got to experience that whole era. And I had an older cousin that was at Woodstock, so you absorb all this stuff, and it just stays with you. It's just like I don't know. There's something about it that just like you're totally absorbed with it. It never leaves you.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that you have to be the richest or the biggest or the most popular. I think that what matters the most, and what we're kind of talking about right now, is the fact that you're making someone's day. You're just making someone's day, man. Yeah. And that day will last forever. And how that lasts forever is a sound and a smell that you helped create.
Yeah,
so,
nice way of putting it. Yeah.
So thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Thanks so much, man. You definitely left your mark, and we thank you for all the music you've left us, and we wish you all the best in the music that's forthcoming. We hope to see Riot Act back in Texas at some point.
Yeah, we'd love to.
People need to go check out that album. Riot Act, Closer to the Flame is the name of the album. Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Like I said, I hate to overstate it, but we grew up on your music, and it's an honor to have you here. I'm so thankful that you were willing to do this. You never heard of us. You don't know me. A random request, and you said sure, and we totally appreciate it, man.
Well, now I know you, and I'd love to meet you guys. Yeah.
Well, next time you're in Texas, we'll make it a point.
We met at the Lost Well. We chatted at the Austin show with Raven.
Something? Yeah.
I'm a giant Raven fan, so anywhere Raven is,
Jason, didn't you get up and sing with Raven that night?
No, that would have been the next time. Like that was Riot Act was with them a year ago or whatever, right? And so recently, Raven came back through, and I got up and sang.
I was going to say Rick might remember you from being on stage with them, but
I would have remembered that.
Yeah, it wasn't that time. But I have a gig tomorrow, and Mike Heller, the drummer from Raven, is riding with me in my van. He moved to San Antonio. Did you know that?
I'm sorry?
Mike Heller, the drummer for Raven?
Yeah.
He bought a house in San Antonio. He lives an hour from me.
That's recent. Yeah, wow.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, wow. Tell him I said hi.
I will.
He's a great guy. Great guy.
He's so talented, man.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking ridiculous drummer, dude.
I would hang out with him all the time. We'd watch him play and just like just like shake our heads.
Yeah, like what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Yeah, we love talking about thrash and death metal. It was fun talking with him.
Yeah.
Said hi.
I will.
Rick, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you,
Absolute
guys.
pleasure having you on the show. On behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave with our special guest today, Rick Ventura from Riot and Riot Act on the Talk Louder podcast.
Had to kick out Rick from Riot Act.
Sometimes I just have to laugh after we say goodbye to our guest because I'm just so giddy that we had that person on our show, and Rick is one of those.
Oh, I have a confession. I break a sweat. I'm like working over here going, dude, fucking blah. And I'm going, God damn, man, I'm burning up. Just gotta, I feel like I'm in the front row.
I hope we're still recording this. Please say we are.
Oh, we are.
Oh, good. There are times when I don't mind fanboying out, and
fuck,
that was.
You know what? It's
That's
not
why we
the
have the show.
It's not the total reason we have this show, but it's the seed.
Yeah.
And when Jared came up with the idea of, hey man, you know, when I've said this before on the show. Here's Jared. It's lockdown. We're stuck in our houses, and it's a text message. Hey, you know when you guys are at a party and you guys start nerding out really hardcore about metal and just whatever music and rock music and shit, and the other nerds like are moths to your flame, and then everybody else just can't stand it and runs away. Well,
everyone else calls an Uber.
How about a podcast where you guys are, doing that nerd fest? And that's the rest is history.
Today was a nerd fest, man.
3 years later.
We got in the weeds with him today.